is a saint.
She is indeed.
She's the first Jewish saint.
She says, I don't know if she's the first Jewish saint, but she is a saint. She says, even though nominally it's 39 years, she says it's really 17 years with all the strategy consulting travel I did, all the years I was on a plane traveling all over the place. It's only 17 elapsed.
Only 17 actual years, right?
Yeah,
right.
no, but really fortunate, really great. We had the kids around this weekend, kind of nice.
Not bad.
Thanks.
Or it's 280 years in dog years, right? Times 7 or something that. Let's talk. Last week was, as Gary and I were talking about, as chaotic a political week as it literally was one of those weeks that's 3 weeks before the election, not 4.5, 5 months before the election. Yeah. It was just complete chaos. But one of the things that came out of it was a pretty serious issue, which was this, I don't know, unruliness of state government seemed to get exposed. And this lack of accountability, and it's not my fault, it's her fault, and it's not his fault, it's their fault. That you can't even have a lawyer in a state agency able to track a $24 million lawsuit with any efficiency. It's rare. I won't say it can't happen in the private sector, but that's a tough thing to absorb. It's a tough thing for a small business person to understand how something like that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It is political season, so this stuff tends to always happen. Then it always tends to come out. These things get leaked. They get a big spotlight on them.
Sure.
But it's not to say that there aren't challenges and problems that happen in any large organization, and it's as much about how you deal with them and put in place the systems so that the problems don't recur than it is for me about the political debate about magnifying every mistake that gets made in a incredibly large government with lots of agencies. I mean, you can imagine that there's always something that happens. The question is, are you getting a good flow of information? Are you waiting for problems to get worse before you do something because you don't want people to know about them? So I think if these things happen and you deal with them and you deal with them well and you put systems in place so that they don't happen again, then we can move through them. But of course they get amplified in silly season as we head into
absolutely. But it did seem to be extra, and there were 2 of them in a week.
No, that's
so
a lot in a
you
short period of time.
By the way, just before you came on, Tori texted me, you've got a $24 million lawsuit and a judgment because you guys didn't respond to something. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that could happen over at Biff. No, with some degree, there's much more care, much more interest, much more, to some degree, interest in the business, customer service to it, etc. Is government falling so far behind the rest of the economy that these embarrassments are just horrifying to the vast majority of the public?
I don't know if I linked those 2 things together, but clearly, if we talk about innovation in government, right? How do we keep getting better? How do we get better faster? How do we use technology, right, to do it efficiently and in service of good citizen service and value? And no, government doesn't keep up, right? We're not as proactive as we need to be, and a lot of that is because there's a lot of vested interest in the way it works today. That's true in all institutions. That's true in the private sector as well. But it really tends to be true in the public sector. And you see it. This was budget week, so you see it during the budget week because you know that it's all about protecting programs and the way we've always done it. There's very little room for doing anything new, right? And it's the same.
But it also doesn't attract people who want to innovate, right? Isn't that part of the problem?
Well, that's the other.
If I'm coming out of MIT, right, and I'm that guy or that woman, am I really going to work for the state government of Rhode Island? No, not in a million years.
Is it the place where you're going to learn, how to continually improve an enterprise, how to continue to deliver more customer value? It should be. As citizens, we want it to be. So yeah, we need to make innovation more central.
How many recent I'm going to say URI engineering, Brown engineering, or MIT engineering grads have joined Rhode Island state government in the last 10 years. 0, 1, DOT might have grabbed a couple.
Well, listen, people who go into public service. Let's not just talk about the bureaucratic jobs. The people who try to dedicate a portion of the career and they work in public service are doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right. The question is, can you hold on to them and can you attract real talent people, not just to run for office, but to come in leadership roles in some of these agencies? I think it's an interesting conversation to say, can we attract the talent to solving some of the real problems that we have in state government, and we can do a lot better, right? Are they environments where you have the degrees of freedom to try new things, to improve things, right? As opposed to just pedaling the bicycle of the way it has always worked. Because if that's true, who wants to be there, right? The people who want to be there are people that want to get good jobs, stay below the radar, and retire, in one of these bureaucracies or agencies, later. Right?
One of the things that made no sense to me, or even speaks to how much government has fallen back, is we both worked in this, had stints in Rhode Island state government.
Right.
I worked under 3 governors and 5 directors at DEM. As a matter of practice, the chief legal counsel, and there were a number of them during my tenure, would meet with senior staff and go through all the pending legislation. So this idea that one rogue attorney in one department had complete control over a $24 million lawsuit and could delete emails and not notify people seems highly unlikely to me, that the system is so failed that the department would have absolutely no way to track massive pieces of litigation. Just doesn't seem, and the reaction also seems, if Governor Raimondo was at Village Ventures or Point Judith Capital and her law firm made a mistake costing $24 million, I'm not sure just the associate at that law firm would be switched off her account. It would be, it's 1, you're fired, law firm, and 2, I'm going to sue you, law firm. Would probably be the 2 next steps.
Yeah, well, I think, there's no question that, they react very quickly, right? But the real question is, why didn't they have the information beforehand, to whether it was in the agency, or up in the executive office? Right, and so this goes to what you're talking about. This goes to, is the information flow there? Do we have the ability to track the legal matters across all of state government, right? So that you literally get the warning signs.
Does the next governor need to embody, you hate to do these catchphrases, right? And these, blue chip groups that come together. But does it need an audit? Does Rhode Island state government need an innovation audit? And to go and identify these things and start to be able to look at how things move through state government, how they can be improved, rather than this one's a little bit of an innovator over here at DLT and that one over at Health, kind of sticking his toe in the water.
This should go on. It shouldn't be dependent on coming in and doing.
Should they all be required to go to BIF?
This should happen as an ongoing. What you're talking about shouldn't be, let's do an audit, right? Or wait till there's a problem, because then what happens is a problem bubbles up, right? And we fix it,
right?
And then the next problem bubbles up over here. The question is, how do we across all of these agencies? It's that game, it's that whack-a-mole. It's that whack-a-mole game where, of course, now we have a new solution and we put in place a new policy. What if we actually had the ability to, on an ongoing basis, to assess, right, the efficiency and effectiveness of every agency, and it wasn't some audit or some political vendetta, to try to call out people, but it was in service of trying to get better and deliver better value for our citizens, and you had a flow of information. So you would think something like legal matters across the entire state government would be something you would have a dashboard that the chief counsel's office would have visibility to all of those things. But you know as well as I do, the ability to get that information to flow across agencies and to have visibility to what that looks like, right, is no easy task. You could say after the fact.
You could say that I can go check in on the court system's website, the new one, which is not very good.
Right.
But I can go and see all the lawsuits that Health and Human Services is facing, And I could see all the ones that that one staff jersey, Herzian had. It was 100. There's 126 of them.
Yep.
This is not this is not UHIP. This is not a $500 million technology. This might be a Google Doc.
Well, I mean, I don't know the answer to this question. I don't remember seeing this when I was in state government, but ask Michael DiBiase whether he has visibility to all the legal matters, that are happening across state government. I'm guessing he doesn't.
He doesn't.
Right? So I'm guessing he's dependent on each agency, the legal counselor's support, whether it's outside or inside, depending on the size of the agency, to manage the portfolio of legal matters that they have.
And this wasn't a $100,000 lost lawsuit. This was a $24 million.
Well, so the bigger ones should bubble up. But the truth is, there's probably no system. So you're dependent on the talent that you have. And if you get one bad apple, right, I'm sure we'll find out more, but it looks like you had somebody who was incompetent in this role, right? And you're dependent on that person, right, to be able to manage that portfolio of legal matters or substitute any other aspect of government you want, as opposed to the ability to see these things happening across the enterprise. That requires the investment in systems and information flow, and that requires investment into those capabilities. And when you're in a tight budget year, how do you justify putting in place those systems? And then when we do put in a big system, then we have the discussion about UHIP, where we don't go about systems building, right? We don't leverage applications in the clouds. We try to design the system locally.
Right.
Now, don't you think every state government has the same challenge of having visibility to legal matters across the state government? Right. I guarantee you that there's a solution out there.
Some states got a great system for tracking every lawsuit. 100%.
And we should be more inclined to look for those types of solutions and leverage them. And then, my argument is we should, on some issues, we should be the innovator to create the solution, and then everyone should be looking to us to say, how do we get at that capability?
And by the way, if there's no state government, there's enough major law firms in the country that are tracking tens of thousands of lawsuits for their clients.
Right.
Let's jump over to story came out today on jump over to Amazon. Amazon's now, finally, or in a more significant way, linking their Amazon Prime to Whole Foods.
Right.
I think we were probably here about a year ago talking about this is what's going to come next. And Rhode Island is not one of the first 10 markets, but we'll see how they do in their first 10 markets. What's your thought on how they're starting to build out this merger and what the implications are of it?
So we said when we first learned of this, I always thought it was a really strategic move, that ultimately you would see them take capabilities and what they know how to do and move them in an integrated way into Whole Foods. So it's not just competing based on your either bricks and mortar or your online. It's now, how do we combine that experience? Sometimes you want to go shopping and physically see the goods. Other times you want to have them shipped to you, directly, from an online platform, and people are going to migrate to different models.
Right.
They're going to be amazing at experimenting with those models, right? So we knew all along they were going to take the Prime product from online and move it into the goods that you can go purchase at a Whole Foods, and now they're rolling that out. Right. And so today they came out with a list of states that are going to get it, but everyone's going to get it. It's going to be,
if it works,
it's going to be everywhere. The thing is, we in Rhode Island want to be positioned as the place where innovation happens, right? The reason that we don't make it to the middle of the list, is because then they've already decided that they're moving it forward, and then size matters, right? They want to go to bigger markets than just the Rhode Island market. The place where we have an advantage that we need to pitch, right, is at the beginning when we say, look, it's a small market, you should be exploring how this works here, and then you should be off to the races across the rest of the network and across the country. We need to sell Rhode Island as that unique place for innovation at scale, and we need to be going to the headquarters of all of these companies and saying, Rhode Island should be the test bed. You should be playing with these new capabilities. You should be exploring it. Rhode Islanders will get access to the benefit of that sooner rather than later, and then those solutions tend to get developed here, right? And then there's going to be a whole ecosystem around putting those solutions together. It's going to be really good for our economy, right? But it's no good for us if we're in the middle of the pack. You have to be the innovator. You have to be up front.
You need to be the Tesla.
This is how we should have positioned, when we went after Amazon in the first place, and now here's a great example of it, right? So now they're in the position of experimenting with a new capability in a Whole Foods, leveraging their online presence. We should have been aggressively trying to position Rhode Island and their Whole Foods here as the place to test that. Not because we have the biggest market, but we can help them get to customer value faster.
What's it mean, though? Let's say this really takes off, right? This could be the next real big iteration of what Amazon's been able to accomplish. This thing starts to roll out, they begin to expand. The implications for those not innovating is devastating.
Right. So now look at it either way. You're a bricks and mortar, grocery store.
Correct.
You're falling further and further behind if you're not already. Right now, you've got this incredible new set of offerings, access to discounts around these products, blended models, online, offline. Even if you're an online retailer, now they have the bricks and mortar.
Absolutely.
So this is Amazon staying out ahead of the competition, being what I call a market maker, not a share taker of the way it works today, but making new markets, right? And they're just getting started. This isn't the next big wave. This is a continual wave of improvement, new models, adding more customer value. And if you try to compete with that and think you're going to be able to play it old school, right, and it's going to go away, it is not going away.
Supermarkets used to compete with each other on some products and also on some price points, right? So Stop and Shop bought East Side Marketplace. We'll go right up on the east side of Providence. There's two Whole Foods on either side of the east side of Providence. There's one East Side Marketplace is now a Stop and Shop. And then there's another Stop and Shop close by as well. This just creates massive separation. We're not fighting about price of blueberries or how many different flavors of salad dressing. We're talking about a complete transformation.
And if this plays out and Whole Foods gets it right, where now they've got us hooked on Amazon Prime and going to Whole Foods, now it's not the way it is today where I might order online, but then when I go pick what store I want. Once you get hooked in that system, you're going to go to Whole Foods or you're going to order from Amazon Prime, and then there's going to be real incentives for you to continue to go to Whole Foods rather than go shop somewhere else, right? And they're going to keep ratcheting up the customer value, convenience, different options, different ways to get at not just the actual products we buy in the supermarket, but you're going to see them move more towards solutions, right? How do I help you with meals and menus? How do I tie to healthcare and diets and all of the things they're going to be able to do with real-time information about you as a family and you as a customer? They just keep raising the bar, and if you're in that business and you're not constantly experimenting with these new models, you get more and more behind and less relevant to what's happening in the marketplace. It has huge impact for us, not just as customers, but it has impact for us as employees of these organizations, where you see more and more of them go out of business, like we've seen some here in Rhode Island. So it costs us not just consumer convenience, but it costs us jobs.
There's also a data factor, right? Amazon's now going to have more data about all of us on almost every aspect of our life. We've just gone through about a 3-month period of really examining social media and what social media knows about each of us. There's been much less discussion about what Amazon knows about each of us. They've avoided that whole discussion, but Amazon knows everything we've ordered from them in the past. They own a bunch of data about us.
Indeed.
They know a bunch of our behavior. Now they're going to know a whole nother level of information about us.
Add Alexa to that.
Right.
like we have Alexa sitting there at home. Let's just assume they're only listening when I ask her to listen. There's
we've now
debate about
that
whether Alexa's listening when she's not supposed to be. But imagine all that information. Now they know what news I like. They know what music I like to play, because they've made it incredibly convenient for me to use voice activation, to get at that, using Alexa at home, and it's all tied to that, right? So again, this is just it's all about customer experience. It's all about experimenting all the time. This is the secret to what Amazon is doing, right? They keep trying more stuff to see what works, what adds value, what consumers like, right? And then as soon as they get onto it, then they make it better and they scale it, right? Whereas most enterprises are stuck like deers in the headlight. They don't experiment with anything.
Right.
They think they're going to wait until this happens and then they're going to copy it. It's way too late for that. You've got to be exploring all the time.
And will anybody be able to catch up? I mean, that's really the question. Can anybody begin to compete with them? I mean, certainly you've seen major corporations like Macy's close hundreds of stores in an effort to retool to become much more digital. But the distance is ever growing, the difference. The amount of data, the amount of the relationship, the fact that, listen, I don't pay Macy's anything. I'm happy to pay. And it just went up. Right. Went up from $99 to $119. Went up 20%. No one batted an eye. They've got 100 million Prime users.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's, there's very few relationships that business.
They're delivering that much value that it's
$20.
You want to raise your prices. You have to raise your prices because you're delivering more value, right? The days of protecting your market and being able to raise prices because there's no competition, right? Those days are over, right? And so now you better play offense in doing this. Are they too big? I think that they're awfully big. It's really hard to compete with them. You better go back to basics. You better be delivering something that Amazon can't. You better be delivering better local service, than they can, that people are willing to pay for. Because the days of you going into a store to buy something, the same thing that you could buy, from Amazon, and paying a premium for it just because they're local, right? I mean, there may be a few people are going to do that, but most people I know, if it's the same product, if they don't differentiate the product and service, those days are done. And there's a lot of stress in these markets right now. And this same thing is not just happening in retail, not just in supermarkets, not just in other retail. We see this in business after business and industry after industry.
Let's go over to our last segment, our favorite subject, Biff. We're just, we're like 90 days away, 85 days away.
We're just talking about that in the office.
Is there panic? Is there any anxiety? Is there any panic?
I wouldn't say panic. I would say...
Alexa, help us schedule the rest of...
But crunch time, which is fun for us because it really is one time. We work on lots of projects over the course of the year, but this is the one project that everybody has a role in at Biff. So I really like it for that because we all show up together, right? And we all show up and we're really proud of the experience and the people that are attracted to it. It is crunch time. Today we added another storyteller. This is a fun time for the storyteller list because we're very careful because we only have a few slots that we're trying to orchestrate here. But today we added a guy by the name of Ken Falk. This guy's 21 years in the military. He was a naval officer. This guy worked in the space, these folks who take that work in the explosives ordnance area. They go in, this is the most stressful thing I could even imagine, like going into a field, where there's ordnance that could explode, and they work this. Well, this guy became a national expert in this area of post-traumatic stress and models for how to deal with that. He's a national leader in this. He wrote a book called Struggle Well. I love this title. And his message and the story he tells is incredibly important and relevant in the military, and post-traumatic stress syndrome area, but it's the same concept of anybody who's dealing with this kind of stress and trying to figure out how optimistically grow out of it. And he's going to share an amazing story September 13th and 14th at the summit this year. So the curation of the storytellers is fun, and people are signing up for the summit. We're right on track for where we want to be. We sell out every year, as you know.
Absolutely.
And we're getting excited about it.
Do you, in these final weeks, start to react to anything like Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain committing suicide in the same week? Does that spark an internal discussion, or do you have to force yourself to remove yourself from any particular one news event that takes place?
No, we do this every day, not just for the summit, but we do this every day because we're thinking about, and like we really believe that it's not tweaking the way things work today. So in this area, mental health and well-being,
which you've done a lot of,
which
you've had a lot of storytellers over the years.
This is a classic case of, boy, do we need innovation, not in everything from our mindset and how we think about it, but when you start talking about the models and systems for the way we recognize, diagnose, and treat and rally around and support, people, with mental health problems, right? We've got so far to go in this country around that. So as it relates to the summit, we're constantly looking at, do we have the right mix of stories that point us towards the issues that we're all dealing with every day, but the common theme through this is, how do you approach it in an optimistic way? How do you approach these problems as a systems challenge that require a system solution? And we love to hear from people on the ground that are dealing with these things, have incredibly inspiring approaches, and are making real progress. And we learn as much from their struggles, and the obstacles that they're trying to deal with and how they deal with them, as we are the celebration of the success that they're having, and trying to rally around them. It really is about innovation in a very human-centered way, right? And it's a celebration of that, and I think that's a lot of why the summit, has as much, buzz about it, and people are so excited about it.
Such an interesting series of events, sad obviously in many ways, but also the impact that the end of their lives have happened. Kate Spade seemed to be one. Anthony Bourdain on top of Kate Spade, and just because of his force of persona, just has, it happened on Friday. We're still talking about it. This never happens anymore in our news cycle. 4 days later, and it's the dominant issue, and it doesn't look like there's any end in sight about really thinking and talking about the impact of both these deaths, but especially Anthony Bourdain's, what the impact is.
No, well, it had a big impact on me. I always say innovation junkies skew foodie, right? We love the whole notion of food and combining and recombining ingredients, and who more than Anthony, brought us all around the world, in a way that in a story that we could see ourselves in, enjoying food and people that were serving it.
And also we celebrate that he went to hell and back. And maybe he never came back, and we don't know.
Absolutely amazing. But to me, the real issue there, is about that we've got so much work to do in mental health and well-being. We just have to pay more attention. I saw some statistics on suicide rates, right? And so these are the iconic.
We broke it down a little bit, because I think there was actually a little bit of a misnomer. From 1999 to now, it was a 34% increase. But in the last 3 years, it actually has decreased in many states.
The rate.
The per capita rate.
Right.
So yes, in the macro sense, but there's also some good signs in the short term.
But it's still, I saw the last public data. I don't know where
it was CDC.
It was CDC data. You're right. It was several years old. So I didn't see the more recent data. But whatever that percentage is, it's still way too high.
Oh yeah.
We still don't pay anywhere near enough attention to it. And so we had a couple of iconic cases this week. And if that serves to get us to focus on this challenge, and to understand that we need to look at it differently, right? Because you get sick and tired of looking at it in the rearview mirror.
Absolutely.
Like, we got to change this.
As always, Mr. Innovation, great discussion. We talked about everything from state government to Amazon and Whole Foods to Biff, and a little bit on mental health.
Yes,
Thank you as always for being on Mondays. Tomorrow, a very complicated day at GoLocal Live. There's budget briefings, there's this, there's that. Kate Nagel will have the helm, and it's just a crazy week all around with sort of the end of the Rhode Island General Assembly. I look forward to having everybody back tomorrow afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center and our friends at Deepwater Wind for helping out. We'll see you tomorrow on GoLocal Live. Thank you.